without giving advice, because I think that's actually been one of the fun parts of this podcast, is like we're both dancing around saying anything concrete because we're like, well, it just depends on who you are, right? And it's like, and we're trying to like talk through these things, and one of the easiest ways to do it is to almost just critique what other people are saying to some degree. But let's move into like, rather than tell someone what to do, like, oh, should I tell my employer all of my insecurities, or should I not say anything at all? Like, but instead of getting into that kind of a thing, let's just talk about how can people figure themselves out better? Because that's what I really enjoyed about the things that you're building, where it's very much giving the tools to the seeker to figure themselves out, and like the personality tests and things like that. And so when it comes to getting to know yourself, so this is a 3-part question, and I'll lay out the questions, then we can take them one at a time. How does someone, or what are some of the ways that someone could get started learning about themselves? Then what are some of the ways that a person can start to understand their customer, aka the ideal company? And then how do you bring those two things together into a meaningful career? So let's start with themselves. How could someone begin that journey of understanding who they are and how they work so that they can actually make better decisions in their career moving forward?
So I'm going to start with the non-obvious answer is be willing to go on the journey. A lot of people say like, I want to learn more about myself, but they really don't. Like, oh, I can take feedback, but they really can't. I want all the feedback, but they really don't. Right. And so I think and I don't know like when that switch flips. I can just kind of like observe it from the outside, but it's like, first is like truly want to go on this process of self-discovery and self-awareness, and be open. I think people say they are, but they're closed, and then it's combative, and they don't really get anything out of it. So I'd say that's step one. Again, sort of obvious, but worth stating. Then there's lots of frameworks out there. So and I think it's valuable making a distinction between like advice and techniques. Get a little cute with language here, because I think I can recommend techniques that are kind of like proven and to work. So I think there's lots of frameworks. We made one, and I think that people get too hung up on the framework. I think a lot of them, if you go down to the component parts, they're quite good. And again, because they kind of want to just like expedite to the end result, and they get hung up on like being typecast or being put in a box. And again, that's more about like you being upset about being put in a box and less about engaging in the process of like exploring that language to see which one of those attributes like truly describes you. And so I think once you can kind of agree to a language set that makes you feel good about like a mapping of yourself, then go engage with others, right? And again, and understand those different contexts. How do I show up at work? Go ask a past colleague, like, all right, no, for real, tell me, what was it like to work with me? When did I excel? When did you see me charged up? When did you see me kind of get bent out of shape? Go do it with your family, right? You're going to act different with them. Go do it with your friends, and really engage in that sort of more journey of inquiry about yourself. If you want to use a test, go for it. Take it multiple times, because I also think we change. Think about the different contexts in which you take it. I just think too many people get caught up in like stumping the chump instead of being like, you know what, let me like trust fall into this thing and actually try to learn. It's just easier to put up the barriers and be like, well, this test is stupid because look, yeah, what about that? Or what about this situation? It's like, yeah. And that's, if it was like a science, they would just take my blood and tell me like from my DNA, this is my personality, but there's a reason it's not that. And we change, but you got to be willing to explore and learn. And so what I tell people is like, try to come up with like a taxonomy for understanding yourself, because once you have words, you can then start to like navigate those words and what they mean. But without it, then it's just like super nebulous, and you just have a blank slate. So that's why I think those things are really helpful. Any of them were Myers-Briggs, Strength Finder, Our Work Styles, DISC, they're all trying to get to the same place, is giving you a taxonomy to try to understand yourself. And I think that's helpful.
I love that. Yeah, I personally got hit the hardest by the Enneagram. That was the one that like, I was like, damn, like, okay, that's some things to think about right there. And it's one of the things that I've actually gotten more and more comfortable with over time in talking to other people, because everyone has their own preferences too, right? And I think that that's an important piece. When I have people take personality tests in my coaching, I don't actually care what the result is. I care what their response to the result is. And that's really what
Yeah,
I'm
that makes sense.
analyzing. I'm like, if you disagree with the test, that's just as important to me as, thinking the test was the most accurate thing on earth. And this is where I'm challenging myself to be more open-minded to the variety of humans in the world, where I'm like, some people are obsessed with like, the I paste a little attention. I don't even know what it's called. When they look at the stars, what is that? Astrology,
Oh,
right?
astrology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like some people are really obsessed with it. And like at a certain point, I used to just like roll my eyes, but now I go, well, wait. This is just their way of expressing how they feel. Okay. What can we pull out of that? Like that's where I'm
Yeah.
like starting to become better at that kind of stuff